Dear friends, welcome to another episode of The Informant. Today we're diving into a development that's shaking up the global stage. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has issued a stark command to his troops, urging them to prepare for an imminent war, a conflict that, according to him, will require the full effort of the entire nation. But before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. On Saturday, October 19th, Xi Jinping inspected a brigade of the People's Liberation Army Rocket Force. During his visit, he stressed the need to ramp up military training and enhance combat readiness. He underscored the critical role these forces play in bolstering China's strategic security. In his remarks, Xi made a grave statement, emphasizing that the Chinese military must prepare for war, a warning that comes amid heightened tensions between China and Taiwan. Recently, China conducted one of its largest military drills around the island, escalating concerns. The rocket force Xi inspected is central to China's defensive and offensive capabilities, controlling the country's arsenal of intercontinental ballistic missiles, a cornerstone of China's nuclear deterrence strategy. Xi's visit also reinforced the Communist Party's grip on the military, consolidating the power not just within the party, but particularly around Xi himself. This military modernization isn't just about increasing military strength, it's a political message. In a world where tensions between global powers like the United States and China are intensifying, China's focus on strengthening its nuclear deterrent sends a clear signal that it is preparing for any potential escalation. In the event of a war over Taiwan, China's missile forces would be instrumental in targeting strategic sites on the island, similar to Russia's actions in the early stages of the Ukraine invasion. But despite China's massive military exercises around Taiwan and its numerous shows of force, is China truly ready for a conflict that could directly involve the United States? Over the past few years, China has engaged in the most significant military buildup of any nation since World War II, a process led by Xi Jinping. Under his leadership, China has been rapidly producing warships, ballistic missiles, nuclear submarines, and fighter jets. This military buildup is being accompanied by rhetoric suggesting that China must prepare for the worst-case scenarios. Combined with China's aggressive stance in territorial disputes with nations like the Philippines, Japan, and India, it raises the question, what is China gearing up to face? Xi has highlighted the need for China to be self-reliant and less susceptible to Western sanctions. The country has been stockpiling critical supplies like food and oil, a move many analysts interpret as preparation for a potential conflict where China could face economic embargoes and external pressure. The Taiwan issue, however, remains the most sensitive and potentially explosive. Why is Taiwan so important to China? It's not just about its strategic location, but its sovereignty is seen by the Chinese Communist Party as an existential issue. For Beijing, Taiwan represents a core interest, and the intensifying military preparations send a clear message to the world. China is willing to defend what it sees as vital national interests, even if it means clashing with the United States, Taiwan's main defender. When analyzing why China might opt for war, four major factors emerge, making this scenario increasingly likely. The first factor is territorial disputes, which historically have been difficult to resolve peacefully. Since 1945, roughly 85% of the world's wars have revolved around territorial disputes, and China finds itself at the center of several. The South China Sea, for instance, is one of the most militarized regions in the world, with China claiming vast areas that are also claimed by countries like Vietnam and the Philippines. In 2016, The Hague's Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled these Chinese claims illegal, but Beijing ignored the decision, continuing its military expansion in the region. For China, these disputes are not just about control over land and resources, they're about national prestige and security. Taiwan, with its distinct identity and separate administration, is the clearest example of this dynamic. The second factor is the profound shift in the military balance in Asia. Historically, wars often begin when one nation believes it has a reasonable chance of victory. China has been pouring resources into altering the balance of power in the Pacific. The Chinese military now boasts the world's largest missile force and navy by ship count. The goal is obvious: deter or defeat any U.S. intervention in a potential Taiwan crisis. However, does Beijing's growing confidence in its military strength mean it could prevail in a conflict before the U.S. and its allies have time to react? Many analysts caution that while China has made enormous strides, it still faces significant challenges, particularly in logistics and combat experience, as the country hasn't been involved in a major conflict since 1979. The third point is China's economic decline and growing fears of collapse. Once the engine of global growth, China's economy is now showing signs of strain. Severe demographic problems like an aging population and soaring corporate debt are dragging down growth. This economic downturn could push the Chinese government toward a more aggressive foreign policy, as a means of distracting from internal problems and rallying domestic support through nationalism. Throughout history, revisionist leaders, including those in pre-World War I Germany and Japan, have turned to war during times of decline, believing military action could reverse their country's downward trajectories. Finally, there is the nature of authoritarian regimes. China is rapidly transforming into a dictatorship, not just under the collective control of the Communist Party, but under the direct rule of Xi Jinping. In authoritarian systems, decisions are often made by a small elite or even a single individual, as in China's case under Xi. This centralized power can lead to dangerous miscalculations, particularly when the leader is surrounded by advisors too fearful to challenge his decisions. History is filled with examples of dictators who led their nations into disastrous wars because of unchecked power. The United States and its allies are trying to confront the challenge of China's military rise through a combination of deterrence and diplomacy. The U.S. has been deepening its partnerships across the Indo-Pacific, securing defense agreements with nations like Japan, Australia, and the Philippines, and reinforcing its own military presence in and around Taiwan. However, balancing these strategies without provoking China directly is a delicate task. High-profile visits by American officials like Nancy Pelosi's in 2022 were seen by Beijing as provocations that only fueled its warlike rhetoric. At the same time, the U.S. must strengthen its military capabilities in the region to prevent China from believing it could win a conflict. Another crucial factor is the need for a global alliance capable of imposing severe sanctions on China if it decides to invade Taiwan. Economic isolation would be one of the most powerful tools to deter Beijing, but this requires global coordination and preparedness. The takeaway is clear. While China hasn't started a major conflict in over 40 years, it is entering a dangerous transitional period. The warning signs are there: unprecedented military buildup, insurmountable territorial disputes, an authoritarian regime, and fears of economic decline. All of these factors put China in a position where war might be seen as the only way out. If you value independent journalism and want to support our work, consider buying us a coffee using the QR code on your screen. Your contributions are vital to help us keep delivering in-depth analysis and high-quality insights. Stay tuned for more updates, and don't forget to subscribe to The Informant for the latest news on the world's most urgent geopolitical issues.
我命令全军各级要强化练兵备战鲜明导向，坚定不移把军事训练摆在战略位置，作为中心工作，抓住不放，抓出成效。要坚持领导带头，以上率下，坚持实战实训，连战连训，坚持按纲施训，从严治训。
生龙活虎的场面，通过视频校阅了各军兵种和武警部队野外分会场开训情况。塞外北国千里冰封， 陆军某合成旅官兵顶风冒雪展开实弹实装训练。南国军港波飞浪卷，装载训练。冀中平原